Hey guys, what's up, how's it going? My name is Rob and welcome back once again for another video on the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a deep dive inside my portfolio, once again giving you guys the weekly update on my Canadian-based dividend stock portfolio. We did make some changes with the portfolio, so I will talk about that in today's video, as well as I will talk about the markets. You know, we've seen a little bit of interesting things happen in the market over the past couple days, so I'll also address that in today's video. And like usual guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. And if you guys want to follow me on Blossom and see my entire portfolio 100% for free and see and track all the trades I make, be sure to check the link to Blossom in the description of today's video. Alright guys, let's get started and let's jump inside the portfolio. It's going to be a bit of a long video, so I do apologize, but we have lots to talk about today, so let's get into it. Hey guys, what's up, how's it going? Welcome to the portfolio update. So lots of cool stuff happening today, lots of stuff happening in the markets over the past couple days. We have lots to talk about. Also have lots going on with the portfolio. As I mentioned earlier, we made some pretty big changes, so we will cover that throughout this video. But really quickly, before we get into anything here, I'm just going to cover the performance of the portfolio and what's basically been going on in the markets over the past week or two. A lot of fluctuations and big changes here across all of our accounts. So the first account we have here is the Wealth Simple Trade accounts. These are my own personal accounts. So we have $115,000 personal account here, and then the TFSA. So we did make some big changes. So once again, if some of these numbers look a little bit confusing to you, since you follow my channel, I will explain some of this stuff because we kind of moved some money around. So just so you guys know, the first account we'll cover is the TFSA. So the TFSA has grown a little bit. Basically, in short, what happened is I did make some deposits and I transferred some money from my personal account to my TFSA. So that's just so you guys know. So might be a little bit confusion there, but that's basically what's going on. And for some reason, the reporting in Wealth Simple Chain isn't 100% correct here. So if you go over the past day, it says the portfolio is apparently down -6%. That's not true. I think it's because I deposited some money, or there's some error reporting going on here, but I'm not too sure why it's like that. If we go over the past week, we can see here that it's down -2%, which is more in line with the way things actually are. The market has dipped down quite a bit over the past week. The 1 month return is -3%, so fair drop in the market overall. 3 months return is about 0. 1 year return is -2, and then all-time return is about 8% from the TFSA. And this is just inside Wealth Simple Trade. But keep in mind, like I mentioned, overall, the TFSA is focused on the US markets with a little bit of Canadian markets. If we spread it over to the personal account, which is going to be the second account we're going to cover here, you'll see a few changes here as well. We actually transferred some money out. So we see a big drop here on March 7th. That would have been a couple days ago. I took the money from the personal account, which was about $5,000, and I threw it into the TFSA. Or was it 6,000? It was about $6,000. I'll show you guys later on the video. But I took a chunk of the personal account, put it into TFSA because I wanted to max out my contribution room. Because I just wanted to get that kind of done because I did have some extra room for this year. The 1 day return for the personal account, which is more Canadian stock focused, is -1%. The 1 week return is -2. So even the Canadian markets are dipping quite a bit. 1 month return is -2. 3 month return is +2%. 1 year return is -6, so that's quite a bit of a drop overall. And then all time it is still up 3%. So it's kind of interesting just to see the way the different accounts have performed. These are my two accounts. We'll hop inside Track Your Dividends, where I do kind of track all my accounts. We'll look at my other account and we'll look at my fiance's account as well. Okay, so here's an overview of all of our accounts together. I use this portfolio tracker because it's the only one I really know that actually does a good job. And like I mentioned, I always mention, if you guys want to follow all my accounts, you guys want to see my trades and whatnot, you guys can sign up to Blossom. There's a link in the description of the video. You guys can see my portfolio, you guys can see my stocks, and you guys can actually be notified of when I post my stocks and when I trade them. So the big trades I made a couple days ago, if you guys wanted to kind of see them in real time, check out me out in Blossom, because you guys can actually see them there. You don't have to wait for these updates, and you can kind of follow my portfolio on a day-by-day basis if that interests you. So check it out if you guys want. But anyways, here we have $128,000 inside all of our portfolios together. Like I said, I did move a little bit of money around, but this is a quick overview of all of our accounts. I do have an ESSOP, which is sitting about $700 in Loblaw stock, which is doing pretty well. Just kind of growing on the side. It's kind of just behind the scenes. We have my personal account that I already talked about. We have my fiance's TFSA, which is a very basic 3 ETF portfolio. She has VFE, VDY, and then HYLD for some passive income. Very similar to my portfolio, but just without a lot of the individual stocks. And speaking of which, I think in the future I am going to be doing some trimming on my portfolio And I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video as well, today's video. And then, of course, if we go to the TFSA, we have this here. So we did make some big changes over the past couple days. I did take a lot of the personal account. We'll go back to Wealth Simple Trading, and I'll show you guys here. I did take a big chunk. If we go to the activity tab, I did take a big chunk from the personal account. And basically what I ended up doing is, let's see if we can find it here. I sold about $5,000 of VDY. And you might ask, why did I sell VDY? Well, I sold VDY because I had a positive gain inside my personal account. You never want to sell stocks at a negative. So if we head on over to my personal account, we see here that we have a bunch of different stocks here. Now, if we want to look at the total gain, we would hop into Wealthica or something and see the total return. But we could sell some other stocks. Like I could have sold like ATD since it's up plus 24%. I could have sold CNQ. Probably wouldn't even sell anything in the negative, right? You don't want to sell like these ones that are in the negative because then you're at a loss. Like I wouldn't sell POW, I wouldn't sell TELUS, I wouldn't sell TD because you're losing money. You always want to sell when things are in the positive. So there's a couple different options I could have did here. VDY has always been a good performer for me. And later on in the video, I will give you guys my total return for all my stocks. But VDY was a big earner for me. So I figured, you know what, might as well sell it. But eventually, maybe throughout the year, I might trim some of the positions in the personal account and put them into my fiance's TFSA, since my TFSA is now maxed, basically. I think I have another $1,000 I might throw in there. But otherwise, my TFSA is pretty much maxed for this year, and the focus will be maximizing my fiance's TFSA, and she has lots of contribution room, as we can see here. She's got a very small TFSA, about $11,000. So I think she's got about $40,000 or $50,000 she can put in. So we're going to be working hard. We got our work basically cut out for us for the next year, probably 2 or so. So we'll be focusing on maxing out her TFSA. But if we go into a summary, we can see an overview of all of our accounts. We have a portfolio yield about 4.07%. Yield on cost sitting about the same, give or take, and our annual income from a portfolio is $5,206. And again, focusing on, you know, sticking that in our TFSAs to get that tax-free gain, right? Like that tax-free income that we don't have to pay any taxes on. So that's the big focus here. And the other thing I should mention really quickly that I don't think I covered is when I took out the $5,000 and I sold VDY for my personal account here. As we can see here on the market side for VDY, if you screw up here, I did put that into HYLD. So HYLD, more of the passive income focus, and I brought it up to be about 10% of my portfolio. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the video, why I chose to go this route and my plan with the covered call ETFs. Okay, so now we're going to get into the fun part of the video that everybody likes to talk about, the controversial covered call, high yield, whatever it is. You know, everybody has their own opinions about these. It's always controversial, and for some reason, it's like one of those topics that everybody wants to kind of just, they get out their pitchforks or whatever it is, and it's always going to be, you know, I don't know. It's just one of those things that people just can't seem to, whether they don't understand it, they don't get it, or people just can't seem to understand that there's different types of investing. I don't know what it is. But basically, I use the covered calls to get a nice big yield inside my portfolio to kind of bring it up, right? If you look at my portfolio, once again, if you check out on Blossom, I have actually about 50% of my portfolio in growth. So I have a very growth-based portfolio. And we saved up a lot of money, work our butts up to save this money. But one of the big things we want to do as we're getting older is we're going to be kind of like, we want to kind of benefit from that in the short term. So one of the big things we do is we have the dividend stocks. And, you know, the dividend stocks are cool and all, right? Like we have our Canadian stocks. Like if I go inside my personal account here, we have like our I guess our VDY would be our biggest ETF, right? And then we have like TD, we have TELUS, we have POW, we have Manulife. So those dividend stocks are fine and all, but they're more like for the long term, right? And all the dividend growth stocks, like you're not going to get that stuff till like long term in your life, right? And we want to kind of benefit from kind of pulling a little bit of passive income if we need it, right? If we need it. So that's one of the focuses here. So we have the covered calls, HYLD and HDIV. HYLD at the current moment in time, I'm just going to type this in here, is currently giving about, if you go to the Hamilton website, I think it's giving about a 14 to 15% yield. So the way these funds work is I can get that 14% yield inside my portfolio to help bring up the yield. This is why on Track My Dividends, even though we have a significantly growth-based portfolio, if you really look at it, we still have a 4% yield. And that yield will slowly grow as I add more of these covered calls. I've kind of decided I'm going to go around 20% of the portfolio, maybe 25% of the portfolio in covered calls right now. And the whole idea here is, once again, to bring up the passive income, give us the opportunity to use some of the income if we need it. And then what we can do is, if we don't need it, we will just reinvest it back into growth-based funds. So I thought about a cool experiment that we're going to do here, guys, and you guys can let me know what you think about this. So of course, which HYLD, you know, if you go inside Wealth Simple Trade, and we go inside my TFSA here. We go to HYLD, and here it's reporting the stock appreciation. So we have -9% stock appreciation from HYLD. But as I'm going to show you guys later on, the actual return we got from HYLD is going to be a little bit higher because we get those dividends, right? So if we can lock in HYLD right now and get that 14% yield, or 14.5, whatever the heck it is right now, I'm not too sure, and we can take that yield, and whatever we don't use, like if you know, which to be honest with you guys, most of the time I won't be using the yield. It's just going to be reinvested back into stocks, and we put it into a growth-based dividend stock, such as I'm looking at XEI. You guys can share your thoughts about this. We could go VDY, but I wanted to pick an individual fund because I want to track it individually. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the distribution of HYLD that we don't use, we're going to put it into XEI, and then we're only going to invest HYLD into XEI. That way we can see for sure whatever returns that we get from XEI, whether it's growth or dividend, is going to be added to the growth of HYLD, our total return, because if we're just using the yield, any growth we get from the fund will technically be a growth as a result from HYLD. Any yield we get, which is pretty significant, will be, you know, a total return value of HYLD, because it's really hard to track this, right? And what I was doing before is I was taking the yield and just from HYLD that I wasn't using and just throwing it into my account. But you can't really track that because you're buying, you know, I'm using my own deposits to buy these different stocks. I'm using the dividends. So you can't really track it. But if we isolate a fund and we just use that one fund for HYLD dividends, we can kind of add that to the total. And I think this is going to be a cool experiment that nobody's really doing right now. So a few notes about XEI, in case you guys don't know. It's a broad-based Canadian high dividend yield fund, pays a monthly income. It's pretty low cost. You guys can check out on the website. You guys can see the returns. So it's a fairly significant growth-based fund as well. And the nice thing about this is it's kind of giving us that growth. So let's say, you know, over the next couple of years, HYLD or these covered call ETFs don't get as much growth. At least we're going to get it with this fund, right? And we have our whole portfolio as well, which is significantly growth focused. So 2019, you know, 25% gain. 2021, 35%. So like it does move with the markets, obviously, but you know, it does have its growth. And if we go to the average annual, it averages about 7% growth per year since inception. The last 10 years, 7, and the last 5 years, 9, and even the last 3 years, 11%. So this is definitely a fund that's growing. Some key facts for you guys: 75 holdings, so it's fairly diversified. And the nice thing about this is it'll give us a little bit more diversification than VDY has. At least I'm pretty sure it does, as it has more stocks, and I think it has a little bit more different sectors. The dividend yield is 4.72%, so it is a fairly strong dividend-based fund. So the cool thing is if we take those HYLD distributions, which is yielding us about 1.something% per month, we can throw it into this fund, and then we're going to get another 4 to 5% yield off that, plus whatever growth. So it's going to get some. I've kind of screwed around with the numbers on this kind of strategy, and it gets a little nutty. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. Management fee is fairly low at 0.22%. Like that's honestly nothing. So that's going to be pretty cool. And you guys can see all the stocks on here. Like it's stocks that I really don't. Some of them I hold inside my portfolio. Some of them I don't. But it's got a nice mix, like Suncor, RBC, Ambridge, Bell, TC, Barrick Gold. Like there's some ones I don't hold here. Actually I hold Fortis, but Brookfield Infrastructures, we have Sun Life, you know, there's some other ones in here, some I do, some I don't, but as you go down, it's a nice little mix here. And we go to exposure breakdown. Like I said, we have a nice split between energy, financials, utilities, communications, and then some materials and real estate as well. So it gives us a nice little mix that I'm not quite getting with VDY, but most importantly, I can track it independently, as the distribution to HYLD and HDIV will only be going into this fund. So I thought that's going to be a pretty cool experiment. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this. And really quickly, before we go any further in the video, we'll cover the dividends, since, you know, that's one of the biggest parts of this channel is the dividend income. Not too many dividend payments yet, and a lot of them haven't been reported. So really quickly here, we got a dividend from CTC, which is Canadian Tire, in a personal account for $2. Fortis, we got a dividend in our TFSA for $10. VDY, a dividend of $21 in our personal account, which we will no longer get because we sold that. And then VDY in our TFSA, we got a dividend for $113. If we go over to our spreadsheet, that's about $147 in dividends for the month of March. I haven't looked at my fiance's account yet to add it into our total. And going into the future, because I'm going to be focusing more on kind of putting more money into her account, I will start including her account in my updates a little bit more, especially in terms of dividend income. So we should see her account grow. Meanwhile, my accounts will kind of somewhat they'll grow from the dividends and stuff and the distributions, but I'm going to be putting less into my accounts, and we're going to be kind of pulling her account in and focusing on here, because as you guys can see on the graph here, I basically have these bolded numbers here. These black bolded ones are my account dividends, and then the blue ones here on the side are hers. So I haven't like really been reporting them too much, but we can see here like in February she made $27, so we added it to the total. We should see her dividend income start to rise over the next couple months, but because we're going to be focusing on her TFSA contribution room, since that's the next logical step for us. And the total dividends here, I didn't update since for March, so it should be about 5,000, maybe like 600 or so if my math serves me correctly, but that's the total dividends for all the accounts. And if we go back into here, the other thing we're going to be focusing on going next is we're going to focus on Wealthica, and I'll give you guys the total returns when we talk about some of that stuff. Alright guys, so here's the favorite, everybody's favorite part of the video, which is the all-time returns. So this is going to give you a better idea as how our stocks have been performing overall, including the distributions as well as the total stock gains, which is always important. So we can see how the markets did dip quite a bit over the past couple days to about a week or two. We did see a bit of a rally at the start of the year. You know, I'm a big fan of dollar cost averaging, putting the distributions in, just putting your money in the market so that when the market goes up, you benefit from the game, but also when the market dips, you can keep dollar cost averaging and you can just make more money in the long term. Like honestly guys, if you just put your money in good ETFs and funds and you just hold for the long term, you will do better than 99.9% of the people out there who are trying to time the market. There's been so many studies, so much research on this topic. It gets annoying sometimes, but for the long term, just put your money in the market, dollar cost average, and you guys will do fine. And then you don't have to freak out every single time you have a negative day in the market. You know, like it gets frustrating sometimes, but like honestly guys, just put your money in. That's why I'm a big fan of the strategy. You just put your money in, you take the dividends, you reinvest it. It's simple as that. Anyways, talk about the total gain here. So the revenue tab is the distributions, total gain for dollar amounts here, and total gain for percentage amounts. So obviously VFE, the US market took a bit of a dip recently, so we're back down for a little bit from that. VDY about 20%. Like I mentioned before, we had some significant gains from VDY, so that was why I sold it. I wanted to sell when things were going up to put it inside my TFSA to get some nice tax-free gains. HYLD is about -7%. This is one of the covered call ETFs that we're focusing on the yield. If we look at the stock price, it is down -11, but because we got the dividends, it is down about -7. So once again, we'll take those dividends. I wanted to do this case study when we got the distributions when you first started it, so we could see how this $430 would be invested into another fund. But of course, I didn't think of this idea until now. So hopefully it won't be 100% accurate, but we can get a general idea of like what, you know, if you take the covered call ETFs, the high yield, and you put them into growth-based funds, what kind of result can you get? And you also give yourself the flexibility of getting those, you know, those nice high yield dividends and a TFSA that's tax-free. It's a pretty sweet deal, and it's been pretty nice for me. Next, going down here, we have TD, which is about 14%. The banks did take a bit of a hit recently. ATD is one of my better performing stocks, definitely a growth-based stock, 23%. CNR I've been buying into to build up my position recently. If you guys have been watching me on, not only on the channel, but on Blossom, I've been regularly buying into CNR. And that's because I want to kind of just build it up to be around that 3% range. I kind of want to hold some of the bigger growth stocks like CNR, ATD, Loblaw to kind of be around the same percentages in my portfolio. We have AQN. I've kind of been buying in a little bit here and there, -20%. So we've seen a little bit of a gain from that, but it's kind of been interesting. I've just been throwing the odd 50 or 100 bucks. Like I think I bought like $50 worth of AQN the other day. But once again, I'm just trickling some money into it. TELUS is doing okay, sitting at 0.41%. HDIV, our other ETF, kind of dipped down a little bit with the market, sitting at about 0%, but still performing quite well. Manulife is but plus 17%. We held this one since the pandemic, so the high yield in Manulife and buying that big yield during the dip really benefited us, but it's still been doing its thing. Fortis is kind of, you know, pretty consistent. PowerCorp has kind of been doing it, you know, kind of sitting whatever. I'm not too sure if I'm going to keep holding Power Corporation. Like I said, I might trim some of these stocks and kind of focus more on having a heavier ETF portfolio like I did before and have some more individual growth ones. So some of the overlap I have, like Fortis, POW, that I have inside VDY and stuff, I might just sell those individual shares, but we'll see how things go. CNQ as well, we'll kind of see, because they're such small holdings. but we'll see how things go. So C&Q has been performing really well. Actually, has been a very, very good performer. And then Canadian Tire has actually jumped up a little bit over the past little while at 6%. So there's my total gains of all the stocks in my portfolio. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, you can check out Wealthica, but you do have to pay for the premium version in order to see this screen, which is kind of frustrating, but I think it's like $5 or $10 a month. If you guys think it'd be valuable for you, definitely check it out. Okay, guys, so that's it for today's video. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hope you guys have yourself a good week. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video update.